Yep, that's not going anywhere. If there is anything that I have learned about myself, especially as someone who likes to 3D print and make things, it is that desktop real estate is one of the most precious things you can have in your workshop. It not only gives you mental clarity, but it also just gives you room to do the things that you're trying to do. And where does all of this desktop real estate come from? It usually comes from your workbench or workbenches. And when you are looking to acquire a workbench, there's a few different options that you have to go about doing it. You can repurpose old furniture or stuff that you have laying around. You can build it from scratch, or you can buy it brand new. And as you build out your 3D printing workshop, whether you are 3D printing, woodworking, maybe you like to build drones, really nothing beats having a good surface or a workbench or a tabletop that you can cut material on, you can attach a vise to if you have to bend things or sand things, or maybe you just need a large surface to place your overflowing amount of 3D printers. For example, this workbench used to be an old kitchen countertop. Now it has been repurposed as the do whatever I want on it, and I'm not afraid of messing it up surface. But you have to consider it still took tools to build this, and you also have to account for the lumber that's propping it up. While it's definitely the cheapest of all the options, you have to take into account the time that it takes you to build it if you do have to build it, the money of purchasing the repurposed thing if you don't already have it, and then also the aesthetics. It's probably not going to look as good as something if you were to build it or buy it brand new. It's not the prettiest. Another option is you can build it from scratch, but you have to take into account when you build a workbench from scratch, you're going to have to buy the wood, you're going to have the tools such as an orbital sander, a table saw, a circular saw, all the different things that you're going to need to cut the pieces and put the workbench together. That's not including if you want to do pocket holes, wood glue, just all the things. I built this table here to record shorts on, and for several months this was my primary filming surface. All in all, I probably spent about $50 to build this table, but that's not including the hundreds of dollars I spent on a circular saw, table saw, power drill, or orbital sander. Now that I have all those things, then yeah, it's pretty cheap to build stuff when you want to, but it's not always practical for everyone to just build a workbench like this. And it's not always reasonable or practical in terms of time either. Because realistically, it takes several hours to build a table, especially if you've never done it before. And even if you have done it before, you keep holding yourselves to higher levels of standard everything that you build, so naturally it takes you longer. But the third option is to buy a workbench. And when you buy a workbench, you have quite a few options to choose from. Also, naturally, when you buy a workbench, given that you buy the right one, you're probably going to get something that looks a little bit better, functions a little bit better, and lasts longer. Unless, of course, you are actually good at woodworking and can make something better, which you probably are. Today, we're going to be looking at the ENJOYWOOD 60-inch workbench. Now, as the channel grows and my vision is kind of shaping for what I want the channel to look like, naturally, I want to expand and build out my workspace to provide better content for you guys. When ENJOYWOOD reached out to me and asked if they could send me this workbench in exchange for what I thought of it, I knew this would be a good opportunity to give my thoughts on what kind of quality this workbench is it functional, and is it worth buying? Also, for those of you who are interested in building out your makerspace, maybe give you eyes on a potential product that you could use. But first, we need to take it out of the box, because I definitely haven't done that already. To talk a little bit about the assembly, assembly is super straightforward. I really don't think anyone's going to have a problem putting this together. It does come with all of the hardware that you need to put it together. However, you will need a 19mm socket and a screwdriver, as these are not included. As for quality control, all of the holes lined up like they should have. There was no missing hardware, and I was actually really happy with how beefy all the bolts and fasteners were when putting it together. All in all, the entire assembly only took about 15 minutes. That is less than the time it would take me to drive to the store and get the wood if I wanted to build one myself. Now, ENJOYWOOD claims that it can hold 2,000 pounds of weight, although I didn't have 2,000 pounds lying around to test this theory, so I'll just have to take their word for it. One of the reasons that I think they can claim this is because the whole bottom half of the bench is made of steel. It has steel legs and a steel structure, which I think for a workbench that you can get off Amazon for under $200, that's pretty cool. This means it is pretty heavy, it's stable, and if you want to throw a couple 3D printers on there, they aren't going to be wobbling the whole thing around like it would on a normal wood workbench. It also helps that it has these screw-in feet on the bottom that are pretty beefy, and the bolts that screw into the bottom are also pretty beefy. It also comes with this awesome built-in pegboard on the side, and while it's not super huge, it's definitely enough to be functional where if you have tools that you use on a daily basis, you can put them there and easily access them. And I totally won't be 3D printing my own custom mounting brackets or anything to go in the pegboard. I have a problem. Another awesome feature, and this is a big one, especially if you are looking into making this a 3D printing table, is the embedded power strip that you can insert into the side. Now, really, this probably doesn't seem like a big deal, and it may not be, because your solution to this may be just go buy a power strip and use that instead of having the embedded one. But I can definitely see how if you had 3 or 4 of these workbenches as a 3D print farm surface where you were lining up 3D printers, how cable management and power management would be much easier when you have one wire coming from your desk and all your 3D printers plug into one spot. Additionally, if you're using this for other hobbies such as woodworking, or maybe you like to solder electronics, plugging in things like a power tool or a soldering iron is as easy as just reaching off to the side and plugging or unplugging it from the embedded power strip in the side. I would say that's well worth the investment, because now you don't have to fumble with extension cords and the constant need to stretch a wire out to reach an outlet. If the desktop is plugged up and the power strip reaches to the wall, then you'll be able to plug in all of your power tools to the side of the table, which I think is pretty cool. And finally, the tabletop. ENJOYWOOD says this is a solid rubber wood tabletop. And if you are curious what rubber wood is, because I was too, it is a light colored, medium density tropical hardwood, usually from trees grown in rubber plantations. Rubber wood is commonly advertised as an environmentally friendly wood as it makes use of plantation trees that have already served a useful function. Now, that's all great and good, but I can also see this being a downside. And while I haven't had this tabletop for a long period of time, I think only time is going to tell how durable this is. I can say that just from having it for the last week or so and the few things that I have done on it, there have been some scratches that have already become visible. And I don't know if that's an indicator for what this is going to look like 6 or 7 months from now, or if those were exceptions, but we'll just have to see. Another feature which is pretty neat is that it also has adjustable legs. Now, in order to adjust these legs, you have to undo 8 bolts and then move it up or down depending on how high or low you want it. Now, I could see if this is a stationary desktop and you move it in one location, set the height and then set it and forget it based on wherever you need it. But I really don't think this is going to be a desktop that you are moving up and down and adjusting the height on a weekly or a daily basis, just simply because you have to unscrew the bolts, lift the table up, and then tighten them back down so that it's sturdy again. Something that maybe could have prevented this on behalf of ENJOYWOOD is to put an adjustable lever with some sort of hydraulic where you could lift the table up and down. But I understand for the price point that that's probably not realistic, and most people are probably going to be just fine setting this to the height that they need and then forgetting it. However, my final conclusions, I think it's safe to say this workbench will stay in my garage for a very long time, and possibly even a couple of more. For the price and the quality of the product that you get, specifically the steel legs and the actual wood surface, and the fact that it's under $200, I would say that's pretty hard to beat, especially if you were to take into account building this. You'd have to weld together steel legs, you'd have to buy the wood, make the top, sand it down. You're talking about hours of work, and you may not even come out on top with price. On top of that, the fact that it's adjustable, has a power strip and a pegboard built into the side. I think these are all features that make this workbench absolutely worth it. And I think any real maker probably doesn't care if there's scratches in the top, so I don't think that's something that should be concerning. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Is this something that you would consider buying? and adding to your workshop? Or are you possibly looking at other options that might be cheaper or have different functionalities? If you have watched this far, thank you very much. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and we'll see you in the next one.